John, one of the best players in the NFL needs a contract extension, and it is not Dak Prescott. It's the face of the 49ers. Our buddy Chris Biederman, the latest to write about George Kittle and maybe an impending contract extension. He's got 1 year left, and this is something we've been talking about for a while. I don't know if we're going to get it this year, but whenever we do, the numbers are going to be really interesting.
He was drafted in 2017. We had a player recently get a huge contract extension in Christian McCaffrey. We have two other guys that are being talked about, which feel like they're going to get extended in the next couple months. That would be Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson. I would say in that draft class, on the hierarchy, the quarterbacks come first in terms of importance, but Kittle is every bit as important to his team as Christian McCaffrey, and you'd argue more because his team's winning. So you look at the premium players, Mahomes, Watson, McCaffrey, Kittle. It's just this is when you pay these guys right now, but his, unlike those guys, I think is going to be a little more complicated, even though it's going to be for way less money.
Yeah, it's going to be complicated because he's one of the most valuable players in the NFL, but he doesn't play, at least financially, one of the most valuable positions, right? You take a look at the receivers and the practical guarantees all the way on the end. Odell got 65, Julio got 64, Michael Thomas just over 60 and a half, Amari Cooper got 60. That's the VIP. This is at the bar fighting for the bartender's attention tight ends. Austin Hooper just got $23 million in practical guarantees. That's the most ever for a tight end, $11 million a year. John, would you trade George Kittle for any of the guys on the wide receiver list if you were the 49ers?
No, I would not, especially at Julio's age. I would say the only team that would turn you down, like I think the Saints, Mike Thomas, they're very comfortable with him. I think the Cowboys, and here's what I would say if I was George Kittle's representation. I'd say, one, to whoever I was talking to with the 49ers, I don't know who Austin Hooper is. I don't want to ever hear his name. Two, there is not a general manager in the league that would choose
like that.
Amari Cooper, who just got $60 million and $100 total over my client. So call me back when we can figure something out.
Jerry would do that trade right now.
In a heartbeat.
So that's the problem. That you've got on one hand precedent and this limitation created by the position. And on the other hand, you've got what we all know, what the Niners who are going to say, here's what the tight ends get paid. No, he is one of the most valuable players in the NFL. All right, we are going to predict what he could make. Before we do that, though, just a reminder, this is our YouTube channel. Subscribe to it. Like this video.
Yep. That's Guy. I'm John. Like you said, like the video. Check out our podcast below in the description. Separate content. Cool stuff.
This happened on our podcast back in February. Albert Breer was on. John, you were at the Combine. You grabbed Albert, and this is what he said on the Haberman and Middlecoff podcast.
It's hard to break new ground when you've got a year left in your deal, and a team can say, "Well, we'll sit here and we'll sit here. We'll let you play out the year, and oh, by the way, if you really want to push it, we'll just tag you next year."
So he's saying even though George Kittle is one of the best players in the NFL because he's got a year left and the 49ers have the ability to use a franchise tag, he doesn't have a lot of leverage.
Here's what I think is complicated, Guy. He's not just one of the best players in the league. He's arguably the best player on, a top two team in the NFL. He's very, very important. And after the exodus of a trade with DeForest Buckner, who was a team captain, and probably one of the most important players in recent memory of the franchise in Joe Staley, I'd say his importance to their immediate and just their future has grown exponentially in the last, since the draft, Guy, or since, I'd say, the Buckner trade leading up to the Staley retirement.
Yeah, he got more important this offseason.
Big time. And when you have the heart and soul of your team, there is a balance to it. I think we saw an example with the Warriors in Draymond Green. Like, how valuable is he? Well, he's not probably a max guy. And for George Kittle, I think if he was a basketball player, you'd have no problem maxing him. But his position. But the Warriors took care of him. Remember, they gave him $100 million. And is there some middle ground of, listen, you're not a wide receiver. You're not going to get the $60 million. But you've caught 173 balls. You have 2,400 yards. You have 10 touchdowns the last 2 years. And those don't even begin to do you justice, right, as a player, because what you mean is a blocker. So can we meet somewhere, the $23 million Austin Hooper got guaranteed, can we meet somewhere in the mid-30s to high 40s without, if you start asking for 50, we're going to say no.
Right.
But I know you're going to say no when I say, hey, $25 million and $12 million a year for 4 years.
But we're going to end up a lot
slap in the face
because the Niners have him. That's just the nature of it. we're going to end up a lot closer to their number than we are to my number, right? If I'm George Kittle, because you said 50. Like Eric Armstead's got $45 million guaranteed, $85 million overall, right? If I really wanted to start this negotiation with, okay, fine, I get it. I'm not getting Amari's contract 160, but I want 87 over 5 and 50 million guaranteed. I want $17 million average annual value. Like that's a non-starter. I can say that because that's what I would think. If I was George Kittle, I'd be like, I think that's reasonable. And the Niners would say what? Like, yeah, we don't even have to do anything close to that.
Well, here's what I know, Guy. Good teams and good organizations avoid at all costs getting into a situation where you have to franchise players you love, right? You know, the Steelers franchise Le'Veon Bell. You know who they were never franchising? Like Roethlisberger. Some of their defensive guys over the years. You look at the Patriots like Gronkowski, Tom Brady, Julian Edelman, McCourty. They were always taken care of. The Eagles, Fletcher Cox, Carson Wentz. You extend early. The Niners, who do you think they franchised? The Joe Staleys, the Patrick Willises, the Frank Gores, the Vernon Davises? Hell no. They don't operate like that. They franchised. The only guy I can think of is Robbie Gould, the kicker, which no one really cared about. It was just like, you ain't leaving, we're controlling you.
Yeah.
And that's who you franchise. You do not franchise George Kittle. So to me, when I read they have the franchise tag, yeah, that's what low-level teams do, or it's a guy you don't like. Like the Cowboys are in a position where they like Dak Prescott. They just don't know how much he's worth. Like the Niners know how much Kittle's value is to them. It's elite. It's a 10 out of 10. It just financially, it gets a little interesting. I know, and if you look back at their history, they always extend guys early, Guy. Now, this one would only get tough if George Kittle uses his leverage, and to me, his leverage is, I have a number, and let's just say, I'm just going to throw out a 4 for 60, so 15 a year, 40 guaranteed. And
which I think is a reasonable thing to throw out.
Yeah, and I am prepared to budge a little bit, but I ain't budging much. So if you come back with a counter at like 28, I'm going to hang up the phone. Now maybe I'll be.
You're saying, and I'm
willing
to miss games for this.
Yeah, I'm willing to go Aaron Donald and Khalil Mack because those two guys, they were at premium positions, which you could argue Kittles isn't a premium position, but he's a premium player that for this team he is a premium position. They operate behind him.
Right.
And I want to be taken care of. I'm still going to cost way less than like Amari Cooper, yet my value to your team is higher than he is to their team. So this is where it gets complicated, and you got to be willing, if you're not going to miss games, at least give the legit threat like Donald and Mack did, and it worked. And unlike Mack, Kyle Shanahan is not trading George Kittle, right? They play golf in Cabo after the season, like he loves them. I think it's more like Aaron Donald, but you do have to draw a line in the sand and make people a little – sometimes you got to rattle some cages, Guy, to get shit done.
Yeah, it's a weird dynamic because the 49ers never get pushed around in contract negotiations, right? They might do a deal where you go, oh, that was great for the player, and maybe it is. But I think privately, the deals we've seen them do are ones that they're satisfied with where they don't have to give too much. So I think part of the question is, like, what's the most money George Kittle can get without holding out? Are the Niners, like you said, is it 27, 28? Because if I'm him, there is no way I'm taking half of Amari Cooper's guarantees. I don't think it has to be a 4 that the number starts with, but it can't start with a 2. It's got to be a 3.
So you wouldn't sign a 4-year, let's say $13 million a year, so $54 million, or $52 million, excuse me, I'm not a math major, and $30 million guaranteed. So $13 million a year, so that's 2 more than Hooper, and $7 million more.
Honestly, the annual value, I could live with that, but it's got to me, just symbolically, it can't be 30. It's got to be 32 and 52.
To me, what I would like, guys,
because
so if I'm signing for
that's
13,
not even $10 million more than Austin Hooper.
If you get a close to $40 million guaranteed, that is basically guaranteeing 3 years of my contract, right? Yeah. At around 39, 37, somewhere between $12 and $13 million a year.
If it's 30,
and I think you just the violence of this game. This is a sport where every year we see great players, their career ends because of just a freak accident. And this guy is not just Gronkowski's had freak accidents as a pass catcher. Well, George Kittle, like Gronk, is also asked to block. What happens? Guys get rolled up on. Weird things happen. To me, his risk is like a running back. Like at any moment on any given play, some weird shit can happen and it's just over. And that's where if I sign for the 25, I'm basically just signing for 2 years guaranteed, right? So you're just giving me a 2-year extension at guaranteed money.
Right.
Where why wouldn't I just play it out as a franchise tag then and do it that way?
Right.
Right? If that's what you're going to give me, I'll just franchise it out. And if I keep balling, someone will pay me after the fact. Again, the risk would then be if I don't
The
make
risk
it that
is you
far
end up on a
because I get
1-year
hurt.
contract.
Yeah, but it's like, is that big less of a risk based on a 2-year contract? So I might as well fight for like that third. I just want to get that 3rd year guaranteed. And I think that would be maybe the new precedent because when you look at like Kelsey's, who's like 10, he's basically they're getting 2-year contracts, right? Or extensions past that 2nd year. But it's like he's not making that much right now. But their counter is we're giving you, you get a big signing bonus, way more money than you ever have. Kittle's a little unique, like Gronkowski, I'd say. And Kelsey started doing the show on VH1 or MTV. He does have a huge appeal off the field. Like he's going to be in commercials. He is going to be very marketable. But I don't know if you can quite think just like, well, I'll take a little. He ain't. I think you have to fight for a number. And to me, what sucks to be a player in the NFL when you're as good as Kittle at a shitty position like tight end in the sense of how much they make, I think you got to hold out to really get anywhere close to that high 3s, right, as guaranteed. Because I think the Niners are going to come back, and they could do it with a straight face. Like, we really like you, 28, 29, right?
Yeah. And I wouldn't, again, easy for us to say. I would not take that if I was Kittle's agent. I like what you're saying, that you're talking about a 4-year contract, not a 5-year contract, right? He's 26, not 27 till the end of the year. And so you're thinking, as long as I'm healthy, I'm going to get another sizable contract after this, and it'll be bigger than the one I signed right now.
Well, it's because I actually, if I was him, I'd look at what Buckner and Armstead just did. Both of them are in their mid, 26, 27 years old. If those guys stay healthy, they're going to get paid again, right? You can play. We see a lot of defensive lines playing at 31, 32 years old. There's a market. Like I would not do the 5 or 6 unless the number was huge, right? There is no reason to lock yourself into a Scottie Pippen like deal if you're George Kittle.
Yeah. What was it, 18
if you're the
million for
Niners,
6
you don't.
years?
If you're the Niners, wouldn't you do like a 6-year, $13 million a year, up the guarantee a little bit,
what?
just have them under contract forever? Like 35, just something so you have them forever.
Yeah, well, yeah. To me, I would do that in a heartbeat because I think it might take 35 over a 4-year deal to get him to sign.
That's what I'm saying. That's where you justify, hey, we'll give you in the 30s guaranteed money, but we're going to do a long-term contract. Yeah. And then you just got them by the balls forever.
You bring the annual value down? See, I wouldn't do that if I was George Kittle, but depends on the guarantee.
I would not either.
Okay, so let's predict, and you guys can tell us in the comments what you think. What do you think this guarantee, when George Kittle signs his contract, what number feels right to you? On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. 34.
29.
I said 36 the first time we did this exercise, but I changed it to 34. 34 still feels kind of like a win for George Kittle to me, which doesn't happen a lot with the Niners, but maybe this guy's unique. 29.
They will get credit, though. We know the way the internet works. When it comes out that he's making, you said Hooper's making 11. If he's making 13, right, everyone, Breer and Schefter, will tweet historic deal. And I just,
that's part of the win, right?
That's the big part of the fucking. So stop. One thing, if I got into the agent business, let's stop fighting for hollow wins. Because you can say McCaffrey makes more than Zeke a year. Zeke got way more guaranteed money. That's all I care about.
But John, if you're an agent and that gets counted as a win for you, then you're happy. And if you're a GM and the agents are happy with that, then I'm happy. And the players are like, well, it's kind of hollow, but you know what's not hollow? At the end of the day, I want a 34, but there's $27 million coming to my bank account.
Yeah, next year I'm making $13 million. This year, with bonuses, I was scheduled to make a little over 2.
George Kittle's got to get more than half of Amari Cooper's contract. That's my stance.
I don't disagree with you at all. And if I was his agent, I would take that stance, and I wouldn't budge.
All right, let us know what you think.
Sometimes it don't hit it though, you know.
That's our predictions. I guess we'll find out at some point. Let us know your predictions down there in the comments, and
like the video.